There is a town in Tennessee where you can swim directly over Main Street, churches, homes, a post office, all sitting at the bottom of a lake, drowned on purpose by the federal government. There is a valley in the Appalachian Hills that processes and stores enough enriched uranium to end civilization, locked behind some of the tightest security on Earth. And there is a Gothic castle that Hollywood used as a film set for Death Row. But no human being is allowed to step inside it today. Tennessee has more forbidden, sealed off, and vanished places per square mile than almost any state in America. But the strange part is not that these places exist. It is why they were locked away and what is still inside them. Tennessee's mountains, hollows, and river valleys created natural hiding places that the government, the military, and private landowners have been sealing off for over a century. We are going to move across the state from east to west, and what you will find behind these fences and under these lakes is wilder than you expect. In 1936, the Tennessee Valley Authority finished building Norris Dam. The dam was part of a massive federal push to bring electricity and flood control to the rural South, a project that would reshape the entire Tennessee River system. But to fill the reservoir behind it, the TVA had to drown something first. The community of Loyston sat in a quiet valley in Anderson County. About 70 residents lived there, farmers, shopkeepers, families who had been on that land for generations. There was a post office, a small school, a handful of businesses lining a dirt main street. Nothing grand, just a place where people lived. The government relocated those families to a smaller crossroads on higher ground. They called it New Loyston, and then the water rose. Today, a mile-wide stretch of Norris Lake called the Loyston Sea sits directly over Old Main Street. Every summer, boaters drift across the surface without any idea that a town is beneath them. Fishermen cast lines over what used to be someone's front porch. Kayakers paddle through water that once was a schoolyard. No one knows exactly how much of the original foundations, roads, and cemetery markers remain intact under decades of silt and mud. The lake erased Loyston from the surface, but it could not erase it from the map. And Loyston was not alone. The TVA dammed rivers across the state, flooding dozens of communities, displacing thousands of families, and creating a network of reservoirs that reshaped Tennessee's geography permanently. Those lakes are beautiful now, a postcard blue, ringed by forest, dotted with marinas. But beneath that calm surface, entire communities sit in the dark, preserved in sediment, waiting for no one. The federal government did not just drown towns in Tennessee, though. In one case, it erased a town from the map entirely. In the early 1940s, the United States government seized over 37,000 acres of Appalachian farmland near what is now Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Families who had worked that land for generations were given minimal notice and told to leave. Their farms, churches, and cemeteries were swallowed by a security perimeter that appeared almost overnight. What replaced them was one of the most extraordinary secrets in American history. The government built an entire city from scratch. Roads, housing, schools, grocery stores, recreation halls, and filled it with 75,000 workers. The city did not appear on any public map. Mail was routed through a P.O. box that gave nothing away. And almost none of the people who lived and worked there knew what they were actually building. They were enriching uranium for the atomic bomb. Oak Ridge was one of 3 secret sites in the Manhattan Project, and it consumed more electricity than New York City at its peak. Workers operated massive enrichment facilities around the clock, handling materials they were told not to ask about. Secrecy was absolute. Billboards inside the city warned that what you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, let it stay here. Entire families lived inside the fence for years without understanding the purpose of the place they called home. When the bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, most Oak Ridge workers learned the truth the same way the rest of the world did, from the newspaper. The war ended, but Oak Ridge did not close. Today, roughly 25,000 of those original acres remain mostly undeveloped. About 15% of the reservation is contaminated with uranium hexafluoride, mercury, PCBs, and asbestos. earning it a federal Superfund designation in 1989. The cleanup has been going on for decades and is nowhere near finished. And at the heart of that same quiet valley, the Y-12 National Security Complex still processes and stores highly enriched uranium for nuclear weapons. The facility is active, operational, and among the most heavily guarded places in the United States. Visiting requires a formal host, multiple forms of identification, and extensive security screening, and even then, you only see tightly controlled zones. Wandering off the approved path is not just illegal, it is physically dangerous. The ground itself is contaminated in ways that do not announce themselves. There are no warning signs in the soil. This is not a relic. It is a working nuclear facility hidden inside a mountain valley that looks, from the outside, like any other stretch of green Appalachian hills. The land remembers what was buried in it, even if the surface tells a different story. If you want to understand how geography shapes where Americans live and where they are forbidden to go, subscribe. Now, before we go any further, and there are places coming up that people actually try to sneak into, you need to understand something about Tennessee law. Tennessee does not just use no trespassing signs. Landowners can mark property boundaries with purple paint stripes on trees or fence posts. That is it. No sign, no words, just a stripe of purple. And if you cross that line, you lose key legal defenses in court. You cannot claim you did not know the land was private. The paint told you. Criminal trespass in Tennessee can mean fines and jail time even if you cause zero damage. You do not have to break anything or steal anything. Just being there is enough. Aggravated trespass, cutting a fence, removing a lock, ignoring a direct warning, escalates to a serious misdemeanor with steeper penalties. Every place from here on out carries real legal consequences if you enter without permission. Tennessee takes its boundaries seriously, and the law is not ambiguous about it. Keep that in mind, because the next place on this list is one that millions of people have already seen. They just did not know it was real. Tennessee State Prison was built in 1898 with 800 cells. On opening day, 1,403 inmates walked through the gates, nearly double capacity from the very first hour. The overcrowding never got better, it only got worse. Over the next century, the prison became infamous for riots, escapes, and conditions so brutal that federal courts eventually ruled them unconstitutional. Guards patrolled Gothic stone towers that looked more like a medieval fortress than a government facility. Cell blocks stacked men into spaces designed for half their number. The walls were thick, the corridors dark, and the violence constant. The prison closed in 1992, but you have almost certainly seen it. Its Gothic towers and imposing stone facade were used as a film set for The Green Mile, Walk the Line, and several other productions. When you watch Tom Hanks walk death row in that film, the building behind him is not a Hollywood set. It is a real prison in the Tennessee countryside, and the atmosphere on screen is not acting. It is architecture. The building looks the way it does because it was designed to intimidate, and a century of human suffering soaked into those walls before a single camera ever rolled. Today, Tennessee State Prison is completely sealed off. Fenced, posted, structurally unsafe. The cell blocks still stand. The execution yard still exists. Vines crawl up the towers, rain pools on the floors of empty corridors, but no one gets in. Not filmmakers, not tourists, not historians. The building is too dangerous to enter and too significant to tear down, so it sits in a kind of limbo, rotting slowly behind razor wire. Not far away, tucked into a remote mountain hollow, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary tells a similar story. Opened in 1896, it once held James Earl Ray, the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr. Ray attempted a dramatic escape from Brushy Mountain in 1977, fleeing into the dense Appalachian forest before being recaptured after 54 hours in the wild. The prison now offers limited tours of certain areas, but much of the site remains a rusting maze of abandoned cell blocks and razor wire that visitors never see. corridors where the paint peels in silence and the iron doors have not moved in decades. 2 prisons, both famous, both mostly forbidden. Tennessee built them in the hollows and hills where geography provided natural walls, and the land is still doing that job long after the locks were turned for the last time. Prisons are built to keep people out. But what about the places that were built to invite people in and then vanished? In Crossville, Tennessee, a minister named Horace Burgess spent roughly 19 years building what was called the world's largest treehouse. The structure rose nearly 100 feet into the canopy, cobbled together from scrap lumber, salvaged metal, and sheer determination. It wound through 7 to 10 living trees with rooms stacked on rooms, a chapel, a bell tower, walkways spiraling upward through the branches. It became a roadside legend. People drove hours just to stand at the base and look up. In 2012, the fire marshal shut it down as a public safety hazard. The structure had no fire escapes, no sprinkler system, no way to evacuate the dozens of visitors who climbed through it on busy weekends. It stood empty after that, slowly weathering, slowly sagging. Then in 2019, the entire structure burned to the ground in approximately 15 minutes. 19 years of construction, gone before most people in town even knew there was a fire. Investigators never publicly determined a cause. Locals still argue about it: accident, arson, or a building that was always one spark away from gone. Today there is nothing left but a clearing in the woods and a few charred stumps where the trees used to hold it up. In Gatlinburg, another kind of disappearance happened, but slower and stranger. Fun Mountain was a water and amusement park built directly into a hillside in 1993. Slides wound down the slope. Rides clung to the grade. For a few years, it was a busy tourist stop in one of the most visited towns in the state. Then it closed around 2000 and nobody tore it down. The park still clings to that hillside today, hidden in plain sight. Decaying slides and rusting structures sit just yards from tourist traffic on the main road through Gatlinburg. Thousands of people drive past it every week without realizing it is there. The trees have grown up around it, swallowing the old rides the way forest reclaims a logging road. You would never notice it unless you knew exactly where to look, and if you did look, you would find fences, overgrowth, and a clear message that you are not welcome. Tennessee does not just lock places down. Sometimes it lets them rot in full view, hidden by nothing more than time and a few feet of kudzu. Knoxville College was founded in 1875, just a decade after the Civil War ended. Its mission was to educate freed African Americans, people who had been legally forbidden from learning to read just years earlier. For over a century, its 39 hilltop acres overlooking downtown Knoxville held classrooms, dormitories, laboratories, and a chapel. Generations of students walked those grounds, earned degrees, and carried them into a world that was still fighting over whether they deserved them. By the 1990s, financial collapse was hollowing the campus out from the inside. Enrollment dropped, funding dried up, buildings were abandoned one by one, first the ones on the edges, then the ones at the center. Maintenance stopped, roofs leaked, windows broke, and were never replaced. In 2014, the EPA conducted an emergency chemical cleanup of the deserted A.K. Stewart Science Hall. Laboratory chemicals, some of them toxic, some improperly stored for years, had been sitting in the building since the last professor locked the door and walked away. The cleanup cost nearly $500,000. Today, 17 buildings sit decayed, boarded up, and largely sealed off on that hilltop. The campus is not just abandoned, it is a blighted zone that city leaders cannot decide whether to restore, demolish, or simply fence off and forget. Unlike Oak Ridge, no one chose to make this place dangerous. Neglect did. A campus built for liberation became a place no one can enter, not because of what was hidden there, but because of what was left behind when everyone stopped caring. There is a stretch of Inman Bend Road near Morristown, Tennessee, where horror fans still drive slowly with their windows down, scanning the tree line for something that is not there anymore. In 1981, Sam Raimi filmed the original Evil Dead in a remote cabin in these woods. The film became a cult classic, one of the most influential horror movies ever made. And for years afterward, Fans made pilgrimages to the location, looking for the cabin where it all happened. The cabin is gone. The land is private woodland now, dotted with no trespassing signs and purple paint on the fence posts. The forest has reclaimed whatever was left of the structure decades ago, but people still come. Not to see something, but to stand where something used to be. They park on the shoulder. They walk to the edge of the property line. They take photos of trees and dirt in the vague feeling that this patch of forest matters more than it should. Even fans who make the trip warn others online to venture at your own risk. Tennessee's forbidden places are not all nuclear complexes and drowned towns. Some are just a patch of forest where a memory used to stand and a property line that says you cannot reach it. The pull of a forbidden place is not always about what is there. Sometimes it is about what was there and the fact that you will never get close enough to know for sure. Stand anywhere in Tennessee and you are close to something you cannot enter. A lake hiding a town, a valley hiding a nuclear arsenal, a castle hiding a century of suffering, a hilltop hiding a college that time abandoned, a mountainside hiding a theme park no one remembers. Tennessee's geography, its deep hollows, its hidden valleys, its river corridors that wind between ridges and disappear into shadow, did not just shape where people live. It shaped where people are forbidden to go. The mountains that isolated communities for generations became natural walls for prisons, weapons labs, and secrets. The rivers that connected the state to the world also drowned the towns in their path. The same landscape that made Tennessee 3 separate worlds made it the perfect place to hide things in all 3 of them. Most states have a few places you're not supposed to visit. Tennessee turned it into a pattern, written into its valleys, its laws, and its landscape. The land itself chose what to hide, and most of it is still hidden. If you want to see how geography shaped other states in ways most people never notice, check out one of the videos on screen, and if you have not already, subscribe.